From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. James, how are you today? I'm looking forward to our conversation, and we have a great guest that we can introduce.
Oh, I'm doing good, Steve, and I look forward to learning about our guests here. And how are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. We're kind of on a roll here recording. We've gotten out of the gate strong in the last few weeks. We've had some mix of solo episodes and guests, and I think that this is going to be another exciting episode that is going to be very informative to our audience. So I'm looking forward to it. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Leon Prather. Leon is an industry veteran and somebody who I've gotten to know a little bit through his podcast where he co-hosts with Britt Yenser called Brave Skills. Welcome, Leon.
Thank you for having me, Steve, and thank you, James, as well. I've seen a few episodes of your show, and I like what you do as well. So we'll make sure on our show we plug, hey, ask the programmer, make sure you're watching that.
Excellent. And we've had Britt on as well, and she's a good friend. James knows her quite well from HETMA, and I've gotten to
Mhm.
know her over the past year or so.
Yeah,
So we always like to, give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their background in AV, so we can create some context for our audience. So if you wouldn't mind doing that.
sure. So yeah, my name's Leon Prather. I have been in AV for I was counting the other day, and it seems weird because I'm in my 30s, but it sounds weird to say it's been about 22 or so years. I don't feel like I'm yet at the age where I've like earned the ability even or the right to say I've been doing that for 2 decades. And now I'm a dad, which is also crazy. So
Congrats.
I'm
Congrats.
inching further and further into a more mature stage of life, I suppose. I think all of us in tech are we're a little bit goofy, a little bit quirky, a little bit weird. I think a lot of our love of tech probably started when we were kids, and then we end up doing something that we liked when we were kids, and so you sort of still feel like I'm getting paid to do this, but it is like it's a job, but I'm also sort of there's days when it feels like I'm just getting to tinker and play a little bit. But no, I'm a mature adult, and yeah, been in the industry for about 20 or so years. Um, I started in it as a child, honestly. I think a lot of people do. I've heard that a lot from folks at different trade shows and events, and just people that I've met that work in pro AV or are enthusiasts when it comes to audiovisual technology. And for me, that started actually because I got to go to a school that had a technical theater program. And when I was in high school, I got to do actually ended up being the main technician for lighting and sound technician for our city when it came to people that would do events within the school system. We had some theaters that you could actually come to that were rigged up pretty nice for like professional level kind of performances and different events. So it was a great experience there. Ended up serving a lot in my church, actually, which I found is also pretty common with people that have gotten into AV. But then you can't probably see them in the background. And if you're listening, you can't necessarily see them. I've got guitars behind me, so I'm a musician. Um, a lot of AV relates to music. So there's just a lot of synergy in my life between things that I enjoy and have been able to do and been fortunate enough to then do professionally. But in general, I'd say I'm a I'm a technology enthusiast, but to be perfectly honest, I find myself more describing myself, to myself at least, as an experience enthusiast, right? So I got into AV because of the things that I just mentioned. But when it really comes down to it, the reason that I enjoyed using technology in those cases and still today do is because I'm using technology for the sake of creating an experience, creating or supporting an experience. If you're talking technology, but it's not about experience, I'm actually not interested. you know, I think my family, you probably had the same deal where folks in your family or friends who maybe are not tech enthusiasts, they see something related to technology and they're going to immediately assume you're A, an expert, or B, you really love said thing. And they couldn't be farther from the truth sometimes. As much as I've even touched programming, servers don't excite me. Certain things don't excite me. And even though I do AV and I've done AV, VCRs don't excite me. we're a varied bunch. But the reason I'm saying that is because You mentioned the article, and I think other things that that we've talked about a lot. What I like to try to communicate, and I'm glad that I have an opportunity to do that in this particular show that you've got here, is to encourage folks that are working in technology, including on the software side of things, the programming side, to maybe reframe some of how you've thought about what it is that you do, because every day is not the best day. But if I think a lot of us, you boil it down, we find joy in what we're doing because of the thing that we're doing that gives an experience to another person. Connect to that, remind yourself of that, and I think that kind of helps on some of the maybe the harder days.
I think that you've checked a lot of the boxes for the typical AV person in terms of
Hmm.
working in a church, being a musician, and
Hmm.
also doing it because you liked it. So that's
Hmm.
certainly a lot of the typical upbringing that I've at least experienced. Personally, I didn't have any of those. And I ended up in this industry by answering a job ad, but I did like the
Hmm.
TV side of things. And if I look back, I kind of was drawn to that and didn't even know it. So that maybe I
Hmm.
was destined to be in the industry. But I appreciate what you're saying. And I think that a lot of what programmers tend to find interesting about what we do is that a lot of it is a puzzle, and we're trying
Hmm.
to solve how to make something work that maybe wasn't intended to do what we what we're trying to make it do natively. So maybe that kind of plays into the experience part of it as well. It's that, I think we, rather than looking at little pieces of things, we get to be more in the macro where we get to see how
Hmm.
different products go together rather than components. I don't know. That to me is what makes AV programming a little unique.
Yeah. Yeah, really. So one second, I'm going to give you a visual. One moment. I so happen to actually have a Rubik's cube next to me, which my daughter loves to play with, and you just made me think of that idea. So you got people at home who aren't watching won't be able to see this, but just imagine a Rubik's cube. We've all seen them, and they have lots of colors around them and everything, and it's really nice to see when it's all solved and everyone's happy about it. But one of the things that I actually put on my LinkedIn a couple months ago was that I'm a puzzle enthusiast. And I think that it's really true of a lot of us in our industry as well, that we are puzzle enthusiasts. Like we like to solve puzzles. But I also found that in AV, we're kind of hacker's not the right word because we get a different picture of what that is.
Yeah.
But we're doing this all the time. That's why I like to talk about experience technology, because we're always bridging things. We do programming to bridge things, right? Things that don't want to necessarily talk to each other. We're going, well, play nice, please, because I
Hmm.
can see how this could work. Um, and with Rubik's Cube, there's a million different ways to solve it, but you just kind of finding the way that suits your purpose. Those are the things that excite me.
James, anything you want to share or connect with on that?
I mean, all great information, all great insight. VCR, I have yet to found someone who's excited about VCRs, even anyone in Pro AV. So I think everyone can relate to you there on the not liking VCR, especially when the clock is blinking and you're trying
Mhm.
to figure that one out. But yeah, no, it's again, we all got in because we like to tinker. And the way I look at it, and I think Leon, you kind of hinted on this, is we as programmers like a challenge to
Mm,
make things simple for other people.
yeah.
We rather take the challenge so life is simpler for somebody else. And that's the way I come at it. Like I look at every system I program and go, this is a challenge. How can I make it simple for you as a user to use
Mhm.
the system so you don't have to use 20 remotes?
Which I think is a good bridge into into
Yeah.
what one of the things that Leon had alluded to is he wrote an article about what is simple. And
Mhm.
if you'd like to talk a little bit about that, because I think a programmer is always being asked to make this super simple, or this system needs to be
Mhm.
simple. I've yet to get somebody that says I want this system to be complex. So
Right.
that is always, while it's an easy term to use, the definition of it can be elusive, and that's what you talked a little bit about in your article.
Yeah. Uh, the the article asked the question, what do we do when someone says, just please keep it simple? Because, like you said, everyone's always chasing after that. Every client is, every human is. We have the Brave Skills show because we realize, or we have that show with, we think about the idea that everyone who's listening is just a human. So we're just going to talk to people like they're humans. And I think when we're working with AV, when we're working with programming, we have to do the same thing. Nobody likes complicated. Even if you like puzzles, that's different. You want to solve the puzzle, but solving it is like what James said, it's eventually getting it down to something that feels a little bit more simple. And so in the article, what the reason I brought up the concept was because our actually this wasn't in the article. I got to speak on this at ISE earlier this year, so there's a little bit more context given in that. But when somebody says keep it simple, they usually don't mean simple in the definition of what simple actually is. You look it up in the dictionary. What we need to do is sort of figure out what they're really getting at. But like simple is kind of in the eye of the beholder. But one of the things that I say in either the article or the talk, I can't recall which, is that it's actually impossible. We're asking for something that you can't do. Simple, I would argue that simple is now impossible by definition with technology. But I still think we can succeed at doing what someone's asking. We just have to get to the root of what they're asking. The reason why I say it's impossible is because we're linking so many things today. Like every single person who's walking around who even might hate technology is dealing with so much technology every single day. They have no choice. And all of these technologies are very disparate. They're disconnected until somebody bridges the things. If I just want to use my phone to do like one simple thing, the amount of technologies involved in me doing what I would call a simple thing is mind-boggling today. And I would say that my experience is a little bit better when it works. But if you actually looked at what's going on, it's not actually simple. There's a lot of complicated things going on in the back end to make the simple outcome, you know, actually be achieved. And so I used to take a little bit of offense when I first heard someone saying, I just wanted to be simple. I just wanted to be simple. Like, please just make it simple. Like, they were so afraid that it wasn't going to be because they were used to maybe someone who came before me not making things appear simple to them when they were making technology solutions. And then I realized, so what was the only thing that was really offending me was that they were making the assumption that I was going to make it harder for them. And then I sort of realized I know what they're getting at. They've had an experience where in this room, they had to be concerned with three different control systems to do one thing, which for the puzzle maker or the puzzle solver, they don't care. It's second nature to them to do that. But the thing that they made, the control system interface, that wasn't made for them. You can't code for yourself. You should never code for yourself. That's actually, like, in my mind, that's the idea. Not just because a client needs something that might be a little bit simplified or seem to be simplified to them, that they need to experience something that they're familiar with so that they don't feel fear about it or whatnot. But also because think about business continuity. You could be gone from that role, not for bad reasons. You could have moved. I just told you I'm getting a new job. I'm moving into a new role in my company. It's a good thing, but that means that people who are coming behind me into the roles that I was in before, they need to be able to just plug right in, and it would be better for them if I did the good service to them of not leaving them a mess because I coded for myself or I designed everything for myself in my brain. So I got it. I understood where they were coming from and just realized, yeah, I shouldn't ever code for myself. So I learned a lesson. I don't think I had the bad habit, but I learned the lesson anyway because someone else had the bad habit at that time. So, what does this mean practically? If you're a programmer, comment your codes or comment your code. Comment your code. That's like one of the easiest things you can never do is just put comments in your code. There's so many times working AV, working in digital products, working in all these different areas where I've come up against something that had no comments in it. And the amount of time it took me to reverse engineer what was going on, the company lost money on that time. You know what I'm saying? It takes less time for you to just do that up front. So think about that. And I don't mean to like take all the airspace here. I'm just going to say, in general, the whole thought behind the "what is simple anyway" talk and article or whatnot is getting to the heart or trying to inspire and encourage people to think about someone else's shoes for a moment. Like put yourself in their shoes and try to get to the idea of what is really needed right now. Focus on that, get laser focused on that. So then when you start to tackle that puzzle, you're not wasting time, you're not wasting effort, you're hopefully not wasting money. There's money that we spend to try things out. I don't consider that waste, but you're not having to continue redoing and redoing work. That is just a good way to live, and everyone, generally speaking, will be happier. So I think the yeah, well, I'll stop there and, and say that because I could sit here and be like, I think I'll just give the whole talk right now. But no, this is a podcast recording. That's not what we're doing. We'll have links, I'm sure, to the things if people want to read more of those bits. But I would actually want to ask the two of you as programmers, am I the only one? Do you hear those words sometimes that just keep it simple? Like how often is someone using the word simple when they're working with you?
So I gloss over when someone says make it simple, because I think what where you're going, and correct me if I'm interpreting this wrong, Leon, is as I, when I started my new job here at UNLV, and I sat down with our stakeholders, my statement to every single one that I talked to, this went from the vice dean, the dean, administrators, faculty, all down, was my job is to make it so you don't have to worry about technology. You
Hmm.
come in and be a teacher. You come in and be an administrator. Like, you should not have to come in and think about the technology.
Hmm.
Um, just like if I was going to the hospital to get heart surgery, I shouldn't have to think about it. The doctor is the expert in that.
Hmm.
So yeah, heart surgery is not simple, but I feel they should know it. It's simple in their mind. I shouldn't have to be worrying about, well, what knife are you using? Are you going to use this scalpel? Or are you going to use these claws? Like, I don't have to worry about any of that as the user, the consumer of the
Hmm.
service. Just like our consumers of our service shouldn't have to worry about, oh, am I hitting the Samsung power
Hmm.
button or the Sony power button? I just have to hit a
Right.
power button, the system turns on.
Yeah, that's that's exactly it. That no one people should they're coming to you so that you would take on that concern and do what you need to make sure that the outcome they're looking for is what they are getting. And one of those pieces of the outcome is I'd like it to, we all have heard it, just work, right? On
Yeah.
the Apple commercials or whatever other brand has ever done it, like it just needs to work. And when it does, it always feels like magic, right? When it's seamless. If you're never thinking about the programmer, it's a good day. I've worked a lot of live events. One of the things that oftentimes we say is the best sound person is the one that you don't recognize is there,
Yep.
the one that you don't think about. Um, there's an analogy that came to mind right before I got to speak at ISE, where instead of a heart surgery, it was a hardware store. And I was thinking about the idea of someone coming into a hardware store and looking for tools. The scenario kind of went like this: that someone walks in and they need to hang 1,000 photos in their house. No idea why. Their house is huge. It's just what I came up with, and I didn't I didn't change the scenario. They need to hang literally 1,000 photos. Well, that's a lot of photos. In scenario one, they go to this hardware store, and the person that helps them says, "Oh, you need to hang 1,000 photos? Very well, sir. You need a hammer." Okay. And then in a second scenario, comes into a hardware store and someone says, "Absolutely, hanging 1,000 photos, you need a nail gun." And then you've got a third scenario where someone comes in, "I need to hang 1,000 photos." And that person then says to them, "No problem. You need a contractor." All three of these are viable answers, right? And it's fun to ask someone the question. I'm not going to put you guys on the spot. It's actually fun to ask everyone which one of those scenarios is actually the simplest one: giving someone a hammer, a nail gun, or a contractor. And it doesn't really matter what people say. The answer is we don't know yet,
Mhm.
because that person is a different person from the next guy or next woman. So if someone is a brilliant DIY type person, but they're really bad with power tools, a hammer. But if they're like, Mr. Fix It or whatnot at home, a nail gun could absolutely save them time. But if they're neither one of those, getting someone else to just handle it might be the simplest option. So you kind of need to know your audience. That's the thing. Know the audience and understand what are they needing, and then meet them where they are before you then embark on creating the solution. It's like a little bit of upfront time that saves you a lot of time down the road. And if you're a freelancer, oh my gosh, some of my favorite programmers that I've worked with were freelancers. Or rather, they were like very small operations. And the reason why I kept going to them, when I was a technology manager at I actually worked at a large museum in Virginia for about 7 or 8 years. I would continually give a certain person my business because he made sure to understand what we were doing before he did anything. I I don't remember ever having him redo work. I don't think I ever had him redo anything. The only time I would call him back in to touch a system was because the requirements of the system changed, or something just failed with the hardware and we had to have him reprogram some new hardware. But it was never his problem. It was never his code. And he also, by the way, commented his code. He wasn't so insecure in terms of job security that he commented his code and actually would tell me, "Oh, and by the way, if anything ever weird happens with this, do this and you're going to be good." And I would still call him and I would still bring him business. So I'm just saying, hit the mark for what people need, focus on what's simple to them, which is the word simple is connected to their feelings. To be honest,
Mhm.
it's not really connected to anything else. So we're not talking tech here. You're going to have way more success, way more loyalty, people wanting to come to you. It is not going to be about what you think and how skilled you are. It's always, I think, going to be more about how you made them feel with the work that you did. They're going to remember that way more than, you list off the spec sheet in a sales call about all the things that you could do. And, oh, this is going to be modular code and this is blah, blah. They don't, they're not going to remember that as much. And 2 years down the road, what you said won't matter anymore anyway. But the way you made them feel, they're going to think about you, and they're going to want to call you. Even if someone underbids you, they're still going to feel a little bit more comfortable with you, for sure.
I agree, and I had this conversation with my team, and it's hard, I think, for some people to realize that I sum up, people are like water. They're gonna take the passive release resistant. Like you said, the people how you made them feel. And early on, my team started coming to me and be like, "Hey, our users think we are facilities." And I had to pause
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, "Why? Why do you think they think we are facilities?" And they're like, "Oh, well, they're asking us to move this or handle that." I'm like, "Okay, no, they don't think you're facilities. They know you solved their one problem and you're gonna solve this problem for them. You
Hmm.
are a problem solver. You are somebody they can rely on. And that's why they're coming to you. I was like, that's a good thing.
Hmm. Hmm. It's a good thing, and it's a good problem for us to have.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Is it okay to like? I know the world feels a little different about him now, but there's a Bill Cosby joke that I remember from it's decades ago, I guess. Um, Something to the effect of why in his house he would try to never do anything well. Because then he would always be asked to do that thing again. He's like, well, why don't I just be a screw up essentially? So I don't have to deal with that. That's not what we want professionally. I think it's better to, Steve, you're just talking about it. It's better to learn to say no when you need to say no. Um, it's better to have the problem of being asked to do too much and then you can say no than someone not asking you to do anything because they don't feel like they can rely on you. Yeah, that's a good point there, James.
Yeah, I actually like where you guys are going with that, and I think that the whole idea of what you were describing is building trust,
Mm-hmm.
and once somebody has trust in you, they're going to want you to solve all their problems, like James said, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't necessarily think about what you can or can't do or what you is in your wheelhouse. They just say, I have all of these needs, and I need a person like you who has been able to solve my problems for me, and that's essentially what we do in the AV industry. Which I think it's a really good um, description there, and I think programmers in particular are the ones that are at the end of the line, sitting with the client, going through and making sure that everything is working to their liking, because in the end, the part of the system that you touch is what a programmer works on, and
Mm-hmm.
the client doesn't necessarily have as much concern or respect or value for everything else that's behind it because they're not necessarily interacting with that part of the system.
That is so true. It's just like at a restaurant, servers are so important. Um, the server is the one that's going to help make that experience good in the end. The chef could have done a really terrible job, but the server might be able to make that feel a little bit better because they're the one that's there with the actual customer. Um, but likewise, if the server's really bad, they bring you a really messy looking plate, and no matter how 5 star the preparation was in the kitchen, you could have Michelin star winning, I don't know. I don't know the names of chefs. Ratatouille, you got the Ratatouille rat in there now, doing an amazing job. But you present that to someone in a way that's not easily consumable, which is basically like what you're saying. It's not going to matter. They're not going to care how many thousands of dollars you spent on that gajillion lumen projector or how state of the art or how much support is in the rigging, or they're not going to care.
Yeah.
um, if if you've designed buttons that are the size of the tip of a toothpick and you're expecting humans, some with very sausage fingers or whatnot, to come use it, it doesn't really matter what you did. We failed for sure in the last mile.
Yeah, I
Man,
like that
programmers are last
analogy
mile.
about the server, because the programmer also helps to guide the user as to making good decisions and saying, I know that you're saying you want this, but have you also considered these other factors, and this
Hmm.
or this isn't something that we've had success with other clients. And it's the same as when you're working with a server in a restaurant. They're going to help you to make the right selection for the meal that is probably going to suit you, or at least a good one should. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think,
The last mile. I think my last point that I can think of here is, um, I got I because I oh sorry, my hand hit my desk there. Um, because we didn't say this earlier, but currently I work for Avixa. Um, I had access to a lot of data about our industry. And one of the biggest decision points that I like to share with folks is that when it comes to purchasing things and spending money, money matters. The final decision maker today is seldom a technician. It's seldom a technician. So even if you're not the one that's sitting at the table with that person, when you look at a graph of sort of how things have changed in terms of decision makers over the years, it started at one point where a lot of those decision makers years ago were technicians. They were in IT, AV, something like that. And more and more and more, it's going up the chain to people that are higher up. C-suite even is involved, and these are not the people that have the time to spend kind of going through all the thousand different configurations you could do. They just need to hear outcomes and the cost benefit. They need to understand that, and those are the kinds of people that you have to learn to speak to. I think one way or another.
I think that's a good place for us to wrap this one. This is very informative, and I think that it's a good way for programmers to understand a little bit more of the value that the industry puts on what they do, and also some thoughts about how to be put yourself in somebody else's shoes when you're programming a system. I think those are two big takeaways from me at least. Um, Leon, how can people get to know you better, find out what you're doing, and follow up with you after this episode?
Sure. I think the easiest thing would actually be you can actually go to my my personal site. It's www.leonprather.com. So that's Leon, last name Prather.com. But you can also find me on LinkedIn. I respond to messages there as well. There's not very many Leon Prathers. And I think there's only one that's a CTS, so I'm fairly easy to find. There's a few, but they're not CTSs.
Nice. Very cool. James, any final words and then if you could share how people can get in touch with you, continue the conversation, and keep up with what you're doing.
Great information from Leon. I think this was a great episode. I hope our listeners took value from this. And again, you can Google me, you'll find me on the LinkedIn as the programmer community. I'm out there. Again, Google me, you'll find me.
Excellent. And for me, you could reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media and my company, Control Concepts. We are a supporter of this podcast. So, what we do is build some of the components that programmers need to either interface with products or add functionality to their systems. And you could find that at controlconcepts.net. Um, if you are watching the show and you were able to see some of the visuals that Leon showed, you catching us on YouTube. If not, you're listening to us on your favorite podcast player. Both options are there, and you can choose which one you want. But just so that you know, there's two ways that you can connect with us, and two different ways you can leave comments and reviews and feedback, and we appreciate them, all of them, and hope that you'll tune in whichever way is best for you. Um, One of the things that we try to do here is build communities. So we have a LinkedIn group called Ask the Programmer. So if you're listening and you want to catch us there and continue some of this conversation, you could do that as well. And we are always looking for new guests and new topics and want to make sure we're serving this audience. So please reach out to us and let us know what you think. Either make a suggestion, ask a question, or raise your hand if you want to be part of the show. All of those are valid, and we'd love to have you on the show. So thanks for listening and watching. Until next time, this has been Ask the Programmer.